So much in our society that we need to be inclusive and we
Yeah.
need to be compassionate.
Yeah, I think we have largely lost the PR battle in terms of the first part about homosexual activity. I don't think people even understand why the church teaches that, and it's basically assumed by the society now that homosexual activity is normal and healthy. We are currently facing, though, the battle still rages about homosexual marriage and whether or not that's, as we see in all of the different, in Indiana, for example, the idea of changing our constitution to say marriage is it's between a man and a woman is raging right now. The interesting thing about that whole discussion is that the church has a very brief document that says this is the idea that marriage is between a man and a woman is something that all people understand and have always understood from the beginning of time, basically, and that this is something that you don't need the church to defend, if that makes sense. The church is saying you don't need doctrine, you don't need dogma, you don't need scripture. It's just this is something that is apparent to us through the natural law, through our own reason, through our intellect.
From reason.
From our natural intellect.
By understanding man, woman, the purpose of marriage.
Okay. So a lot of that class, we went into, what a lot of people have put forward throughout the years, and especially recently, about natural reasons why marriage is between a man and a woman. So a lot of people accuse the church, for example, the judge in California who threw out Proposition 8, which was the law in Californians voted to change their to add to their constitution a marriage as it has always been defined is between a man and a woman. Well, one judge threw that out recently, last year, even though the voters had voted on it. Yeah. The judge throws that out, and he says that all the arguments were basically based on religion, and that's what a lot of people say. Well, this is you're bringing your religion into the state, and when in reality the church doesn't do that. The church says you don't need the church for this. This is something so most of that class we look at why from reason the church teaches that.
Okay. What about the other subject, adoption?
Yeah, adoption is the church is even more brief on, but again it says the same thing, that it's basically up to natural reason, and there's no you don't need church doctrine or dogma to kind of make that clear. But basically, we get into the whole issue there of you hear a lot of people say a lot of times is basically, look, these kids are going to grow up in orphanages, or they're going to grow up without parents. Isn't it better that they have somebody loving them than no one? But in fact, we as a society do a lot in terms of we don't give our children who are orphans to anybody. And we do a lot to make sure that they are in an environment that is safe and conducive to their own personal growth. And a lot of the kids that I was teaching would say this. They ask very good questions, and they're not just kind of taking it. They're not just kind of agreeing to drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak. But they would ask, well, if I were a kid in an orphanage, I'd rather be having someone adopt me than nobody. And that's the kind of the presentation that is made a lot of times. But if you think about it, we do many things. There's a lot of times where we go into situations where there's a child that's been adopted, and our society, the Child Protective Services, will either not let that child be adopted by this certain family situation, or will go in and pull them out. And even sometimes based on sexual activity. If there's prostitution going on in the home, we would never send a child into that environment, and that's not a religious thing. That's just common sense, right? I mean, that's something that we just understand to be problematic, and so the church basically, I think the main thing that you could say about homosexual adoption is not. Some people make the argument, and this has been proven. This isn't true. The kids that are adopted in those situations don't necessarily become homosexual themselves. I mean, it's not that. It's more of just the overall environment and what kind of background and what kind of raising they're getting, and it's the subtle things that are beneath the surface. We talk even before homosexuality with marriage, just all of the stuff that is beneath what we are aware of going on in our consciousness. All the subconscious stuff in our own lives is down there motivating us, but we're not aware of it so often. And so I think a lot of these issues really get to that. And what are we doing beneath the surface of these of the children that are in those environments?
And certainly the need for the influence of a father and a mother
Exactly.
would be, we just say that's according to nature. That's the way we're made. Man can bring something to children that women can't. Women can bring something to children that men can't. But it's really a tough sell, as you said.
And people will say, well, there's only, there's many, yes, that's ideal that there's a mother and a father, but there's so many single-parent families and all of these other, and that's the true scandal, I think, and that's the true problem of the breakdown in marriage, and that's why I think we hear so much about the devil attacking marriage. Once you break the institution of marriage down to mean almost nothing, which it does today in our society, it means very little, then all of a sudden now we can say, well, why does it even matter? And we have so many people that argue that it's worthless, or pointless.
Well, it's a good point. The breakdown of marriage then brings up all these other other issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so what did you do after all these fiery statements, accusations?
Yeah.
Were you here when it was happening?
I was actually on vacation, ironically, and I didn't even know about it until basically about 5 days after it all had happened. And so I guess in some ways that was providential because it just kind of ran its course without me being able to do anything about it. I was actually on vacation in Rome with a priest friend of mine.
Far away.
Far away, yeah. So when I found out about it, though, what I eventually did was answered. I read all of them, all the 1,000 or so comments that were on there in various places on YouTube and on my blog, and I pulled out the different themes of people who were raising good questions, and then I did another blog post where I kind of tried to respond to those questions that I felt like were actually an attempt at dialogue. And when I first did the class, I certainly did my research. I probably did 4 or 5 or 6 hours of preparation for class, because I knew it's an important subject. But I never imagined that, when I was teaching, that this was going to be going out to that I was going to be like a mouthpiece on behalf of the entire church to a big population of our, homosexual community and people that are out there in the world. And so, there were some good questions, and there were some things that needed to be addressed or fine-tuned. So that's basically what I did. And then after that, we basically kind of left it.
Well, and am I correct in understanding that there was quite a bit of pressure for you to take the classes that, as you were teaching them on the blog, or that you had done in Ritter High School, take them off the blog?
Yeah.
And but finally, it even went to the bishop, didn't it?
Yeah. I know the archdiocese had to get involved, and I know there was the lawyer. Eventually went to the lawyers, which is always the dreaded place to end up. But the archdiocese was very supportive, and the lawyer was. The school was, and I understand and I appreciate, the school's concern of. And the initial concern of what do we do with this? They don't get that very often, In fact, I'm sure it's never happened before, and so their concern was just how do we protect the school and everything, and so there was some initial push to get the class taken off of the internet just to kind of hope it would go away, but I pushed for, and I think the diocese kind of realized, if we take it down at this point, that's probably only going to make the story bigger, as opposed to just leaving it up and letting it kind of ride out. And so that's eventually the course that people went with.
So actually, the diocese backed that what you were saying is good, solid clear
Yeah.
Catholic teaching. You can find it in the Catechism of the Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
and but it is so countercultural
Mm-hmm.
that, as Jesus often says, if I was persecuted, then know that you will be persecuted too.
Sure. Yeah.
Trying to speak the truth with love.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you say specifically when people say the church is not compassionate, the church is not inclusive?
Mm-hmm.
The church would want to take in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
How do you answer that in a
And it's funny.
truthful and loving way?
One of the commenters on the blog had said something about we need to. This guy, as crazy as this priest is, basically he was saying.
Meaning you.
Yeah, meaning me.
Okay.
We need. This is the type of people that we need to be dialoguing with from a religious perspective, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. Hopefully, not wisdom in the fact that I'm crazy, but hopefully, wisdom in the fact that when you look at other religions, the major religions in our country of Islam and evangelical Protestantism, both of them would say that attraction itself is sinful, and are very strongly against any type of homosexuality. We don't hear that in the media for whatever reason, and I just did a blog post on why we might not hear that.
And what did you say?
I don't know exactly what it is. To be honest, I was actually asking for some people to say why do you think that why is this the case?
Well, isn't there still a big argument, Father John, about where does homosexuality or lesbian attraction come from, whether it's from nature or from nurture?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something, genetic, or the stronger opinion, at least I think among Catholics, seems to be it's more in the raising or the nurturing that a person receives very early?
Right, and the nice thing about it with the church, the church's position, people are always like, I can't wait to see what the church says when we finally prove that homosexuality is biological. And the thing about it for Catholics is that it doesn't matter to the church one way or the other. The church's teaching wouldn't change because again, it's also biological for me to be attracted to have sex with every woman that I find attractive, or the people. There's a lot of things that are biologically present within every human person that we still don't act on. So even if it is something that's proven to be biological, that doesn't change, the church's teaching on that. So, but again, I always talk to people about the idea of what the other religions say, and that I think that we're actually very reasonable and seem to be having that compassionate message.
Trying to understand. Father John, give us a website for your blog.
Well, it's the best thing to do is probably just go to Google and type in "On This Rock" blog or Father John Hollowell, some amalgamation of that. But it's On This Rock with hyphen or with dashes in there. So it's on this rock. And then
that's easy enough.
Yeah, and then .blogspot.com. Again, that's why I say go to Google if you're wanting to find it. The internet search engine.
The rock.
Yeah.
Okay, Father John, our time has run out on us. Thank you very much for sharing with us what has been some pretty startling in your life. Our guest has been Father John Hollowell, who's the full-time teacher at Ritter High School, Northwest Indianapolis. And to our listening audience, we say may God bless you all, always, and in all ways.